Welcome to Lakeside's Garage. Here we are in the old truck garage. We're gonna talk about some of the projects we got going on this winter. But Joe and I have been doing these videos in an effort to raise awareness to the Historical Construction Equipment Association in Bowling Green, Ohio, home of the National Construction Equipment Museum. And we're planning on breaking ground in 2022 on our new 20,000 square foot building. And we've had, one thing we've mentioned is we have a challenge by Ohio Cat that Ken Taylor, owner of Ohio Cat, has said he would match the next $500,000 that gets donated. So whether you donate $1 or $100,000, it's going to be double that, courtesy of Ken Taylor and Ohio Cat. And so now's the time, if you're thinking about it. And what this is going to be able to do, it's going to enable us to do a better job of what we're doing. Now, we've already we've had a lot of money donated before this. So this isn't everything that we're doing to build the museum. We've got money in place to do it. But it's going to make it, it's an expensive endeavor, and we want to do a first-class job at it. And the more we get in, the better of the job we're going to be able to do. We have, as of right now, over 178,000 that has been donated that will be matched by Ohio Cat. So keep up the good work. I'd like to thank everybody that's jumped in there. We've had some really good members, and it's important. You know, there's no other museum in the country that's dedicated solely to preserving the history of this construction equipment. And this stuff is slowly going by the wayside. You know, we see a lot of videos and stuff online, and that's nice. I watch them all the time, but it's slowly going away. Eventually, the only place you're going to be able to get this stuff is at our museum. So it's very important that we get the facility up and we can house as many historical machines as possible. And we'll get into more of that as we go. This 1935 FWD truck that's back here, we got it. It's a restored 1935 FWD, and pretty nice truck. It had a flatbed on it, and it wasn't really that originally had a snowblower on it, and I've talked about that in the past. But we went ahead and made it into a dump truck. We came by a dump box. It was close, and it looks good on there. And we thought, wow, this will be great. We'll have it ready to go this year. But we ran into a stumbling block in that transmission. The gear for the power takeoff is a different pitch than all the rest of them that we come across. Well, we got a donation from Howard Bowers, who's also a corporate member of the Historical Construction Equipment Association. He had a bunch of stuff he didn't need, and he sent a whole pallet of parts, a big box of parts up, and we're unloading it, and I looked in there and I says, wow, that gear looks like it's the right gear, and sure enough it is. Now it's a whole power takeoff with the correct gear for this truck, but it's all froze up and it needs rebuilt. So we're going to show that when we go over to the other building, but we're hoping we can get that rebuilt and have this thing operating in a dump box going up and down in time for our show. Okay, here we are. We've got a 1913 Buick car. Now we don't get into too many cars and into collecting cars too much, but we got the opportunity to get this car. And what was kind of cool about it is we bought it from the original family and that owned it. But the great uncle of the guy we bought it from had bought this car new in 1913, and his name was Roy McConnell, and he was a Civil War veteran from Petoskey, Michigan. And he bought this new, and he was the last man to drive it. And the family did a wonderful job at just preserving this thing. If you look at it, all we've done with this car is clean it up, and we did get it running. It hadn't run since 1921, but we got it running. It's got a little 4-cylinder Buick overhead valve Buick motor, and there's a few interesting things about it. When we first got it, we didn't know what this is. I don't know if I can illuminate it, but it's self-start. Yeah, it's called a disco self-starter. So I didn't know, and it had a line going to the acetylene tank that you use for the headlights. So I thought, well, maybe it's some kind of it's supposed to be hooked to the headlights or something. But actually, through some research by a friend of ours, he found out that the rest of the plumbing wasn't on it. Now, see these lines here? These lines go to each cylinder. Here, we'll move around the other side here and show you. These are plumbed into each cylinder. They come in right here. And what you do is you turn that gas, it puts acetylene into each cylinder, and then this has got a magneto that has a battery to get it started until it doesn't have an impulse on it. It's an older one. So you hit that mag, you turn it on, one of these should be up on compression and ready to fire. And it'll spark and it'll start the engine. We've never used it. We've only crank started it, but one of these days we're going to do it. We've run the headlights on the acetylene now. But I thought that was pretty interesting. This is all original, and the Buick collector groups has told us, don't do anything to this car. The less you do to it, the better off you're going to be. We did have the seats repaired a little bit, but that's 90% original leather, and the guy who redid it said it was some of the nicest leather he had worked with. It was able to soften it up nice, and we've got it running, and it drives around good. We just drive it around the farm here a little bit, but it's got the original rug in it. The top, the rodents had got to it, so we're gonna. It has like a convertible canvas top, and we have all the framework for it. And we're gonna go ahead and get that fixed up one of these days. But that's an interesting car. We keep learning about it. It's got a little problem right now. It's got a cone clutch for the master clutch, and it's stuck right now. But it's stuck a few times before, and we unstick them, and it'll get going again. But it was running last fall when we put it in here. Here's an interesting truck. This is a 1927 Indiana. And Indiana went on to be bought out by a White Motor Company. But this truck was at a quarry in Findlay, Ohio, Swint Stone Company originally. And interestingly, it was in the same quarry that the electric Marion shovel that the HCEA has that's restored. And a couple of years ago, we had a reunion where they were both survived. They both went different paths, but they wound up back together out at the HCEA museum, and that shovel was able to load this truck again for the first time in about 90 years. So the only thing that's not original, this truck is all original condition. The only thing, it was stored in a barn, and it's original glass, everything. It's a beautiful truck. The only thing that isn't original is this radiator. Someone had stolen the radiator. So we're looking for one. It should have a casting with like the ribs cast into it. You know, if anybody knows of one of them, we're looking for one. But it's a nice truck, runs good. We got this from Jim Conrad, a good friend of ours, and nice original condition. We're going to keep it right like it is. This truck here is a 1918 white model TBC truck. Now, an interesting thing about this is this truck was built in 1918, between October and November of 1918. And White supplied more trucks than anybody for World War I, which ended in November of 1918, Armistice Day. Now, when we got this truck, this had been stowed away in a garage. The story we got with it is it was in the basement of a building in Cleveland, Ohio, and they had built another building so close to it that it couldn't come out. So we're guessing it spent 60 some years in that building. And then a builder up there, and we knew we know his name. Well, he got it and stored it at his place for several years. And then there was a contractor from the east of Cleveland that had an engine that this guy needed, and he traded them for this truck. So it sat for another 30-some years in this guy's garage. And then we heard about it through a friend that told us about it, and it took us about a year. Well, we found it, and we made a deal and bought it. But I think, and I've run this past some people from Crawford Auto Museum, and they think I agree with my theory. I think that this truck was built for World War I, but since the war ended, it never went for the military. And the reason I say that, there's a couple things that would indicate that. This radiator, this is like silk screened, where it says white on the grill. Most of the ones, everything else that we have from that, the white is embossed on the radiator. And the World War I trucks that I've noticed in some history books have a number there. They don't say white there, they have a number. So that would indicate to me that this is one of the indicators. Also, after we bought this truck, I noticed the builder's plate. We had bought it, and of course it was, it had a half-inch of dirt everywhere on it. And the builder's plate, when we're cleaning it, I noticed that the patent dates went up to 1921. And I thought, well, geez, is this truck newer than we think? Well, we double-checked our serial number and everything with our guidebooks and everything, and I put it right back to, and the model number, because they changed the model designations also. But it put it right back to that October, November of 1918. So I think what it was, some of the other history that I read, that a lot of manufacturers that built stuff for World War I got stuck with a lot of inventory at the end of the war. And I think that this one is probably one of many chassis that were sitting at White Motor Company in Cleveland, and they probably didn't move it until 1921. And then also even the cab was the Highland Cab Company that built this cab. It's also dated for 1921 or 22, but it's all original condition. The backrest is original. I don't know if you can see, it's kind of dark here, but that's original. These we had to have redone. The rodents had just gotten to them too much, but and none of these windows would move, but we got everything functioning, but it's all original. Does that help you any? Oh, yeah. See that tag up there in the back of the cab? That's the break-in instructions for this cab. That's on there. Now we put a piece of plexiglass over it so that there wouldn't be anybody be tempted to take it down. But this was a spare truck for the Plain Dealer Company, and we don't believe it ever got much use to it. Enough to where it didn't even get that tag ever taken out of it. So, and it drives like a newer truck. I've driven it into our local town, and it drives like it doesn't have as many miles as some of the other ones. This is the acetylene tank down here for the headlights. When we were cleaning it, I took this off one night, and felt like it had acetylene into it. So when we put it back on, we hooked it up, and those headlights are still running on the acetylene that was in that tank, probably from the 1920s. So, and I don't know if you can get this, Joe, but this lettering was on this side of this bed, Plain Dealer Publishing, and most of this is original. We did have to do some repainting in this section, but all this wood is original, and this was on there. It wasn't as vivid as what it is now. So we had a professional sign painter come in, and he just made it a little more legible. You could read it, but we made it more, pop out a little bit more. But it's exactly the way it was. And the truck's in incredible condition, and to me, this is better than I appreciate these barn finds like this in original shape way more than even the restored ones. This sign right here was found in the attic of an old Alice Chalmers dealer, and if you can see it on there, it's like the old Christmas ornaments that were like bubblers. Well, it's showing the flow of oil into the filter here, dirty, in dirty, out clean. So that was what hung at an Alice Chalmers dealer. you know, trying to sell their oil filters. So, and I just think that's the coolest, one of the coolest signs. A friend of ours found it in a dealership down around New Philadelphia, Ohio. And then this sign is also up in the rafters there as well. And I think we just had to put bulbs in it, made it work.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of.
In another video that Joe and I did, we had talked about this Caterpillar D468 engine being Caterpillar's first attempt into the automotive truck diesel market. And one of our members called me and said, well, you know, Caterpillar didn't get into the truck engines until the 1960s. And like we said, he's correct, really. But in the late 1930s and about 1940, they did attempt to get into it. And I had mentioned it was in the ATHS magazine, the American Truck Historical Society. I remembered wrong, but I went home and I looked it up, and it was in the Antique Caterpillar Machinery Owners Club magazine about 6 years ago. But here's the story, and it says, you know, these are Mack trucks, like an LJ Mack, looks like to me, but Cat began selling diesel engines for trucks 75 years ago. And what they did is they outfitted a bunch of trucks with these and took them all over the United States on a drive to market them with this engine in them. And I think the reason that it fizzled out was because World War II started, and that's it just ended it, and they didn't get back into it seriously until the 60s. There's another Mack with one of these engines in it. But they put a lot of miles on them, according to this article, and but it fizzled out for whatever reason. So there's the story. Okay, on a previous video, Joe and I talked about this DW10, 1942 DW10 with vacuum actuated brakes. And this valve, I had talked about it, but it was in deplorable condition. It had pot metal inside that was ate out, and surfaces that were bad, and rubber seals in there that were bad. And we repaired all that and finally got it. It took a lot of doing. We got a lot of work into this valve, but it's operable. And I'm going to demonstrate it. I have it hooked to a shop vac. We're just going to sitting together here, but earlier today I got it working, so I'm just going to show how it works. I'm going to go around and turn that vac on. You ready? I got the shop vac hooked up to it now. That's all the noise. But see, this is your service brake. When the operator runs that, now see there, Joe? The vacuum is setting the brakes. Now when it's hooked to the regular vacuum pump that's on the engine, it'll have more vacuum than this, and it'll the action will be quicker, but there it is releasing. See? Applying it, releasing it. All right, I'm going to shut the vacuum off.
He had his hand on it. Almost looked bigger.
What?
See, we get people with little ages working
Yeah,
here.
I have mine's on my desk so I can just
Hey,
carry
Hey,
it.
come on, behave. You're on being filmed here, working. There we go. That looks better. All right.
and tighten that one up.
I don't have one.
Give you that before they get over it.
What the heck is that, Uncle Joe?
Yeah, we got one more over here.
This direction.
You gotta get this off of there.
Same with this one. Take this one like this direction, okay? Got it?
Okay.
Don't step on me, I'm not. Auntie, I'm gonna move. I'm not gonna step on you. I don't want.
Yourself where you can get in there.
Okay, you gotta.
To get creative.
Let me get you a screwdriver. Maybe I'll get you a better one out of my truck.
Here.
Unless you want to here, get started with this one. Gabe. Here. Get started with this one. You need to tighten that clamp up. You're just going to take both hands. You're going to hold the clamp. Turn up. Screw.
Thank you for watching Lakeside's Garage. Join us every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. as we bring you pieces in our collection. In this short video here, a gentleman is working on the Kohler 800-watt generator on the 15B Bucyrus Erie. Once again, join us every Sunday morning, 10 a.m. here on Facebook Live for Lakeside's Garage. To help support the HCEA, go to www.hcea.net.